She was slapped in front of the entire room, called the girl who lived in a horse stable, the disgrace of the family, the country bumpkin who stumbled into a high society banquet. Even the ones who brought her into this world said coldly, "You don't belong here." The fake sister clutched her shoulder and cried. Her boyfriend smirked. "Royal blood doesn't milk cows, does it?" Until one moment changed everything. She inherited the entire multi-billion-dollar fortune. The Wexley estate loomed over the Connecticut countryside, its stone walls draped in ivy, its windows glinting under a gray autumn sky. The mansion, a century-old fortress of wealth, was the heart of the Wexley family built by Reginald Wexley, the founder of Wexley Holdings, a global empire of finance, real estate, and influence. Today the grand hall was packed for the reading of Reginald's will, the air thick with the scent of polished oak and the murmur of ambition. Velvet curtains framed tall windows, chandeliers cast a cold glow, and the family sat in carved mahogany chairs, their tailored suits and silk dresses a stark contrast to the occasion's gravity. Clara Wexley, 28, slipped into the hall, her white linen dress plain, her non-branded shoes scuffed from years of use. As Clara slipped into the grand hall, a group of distant cousins near the front, their silk ties and designer gowns gleaming, amplified the scorn with venomous whispers. A man with a monogrammed handkerchief sneered, his voice loud enough to carry, "Look at that dress. Did she pull it from a laundry basket?" This is a will reading, not a peasant fair. His sister, her diamond bracelet flashing, laughed sharply. "She's got no right to sit here. Bet she's planning to beg for a handout." The cousins' laughter drew nods from the board members, their eyes fixed on Clara's scuffed shoes, as if her presence defiled the hall's elegance. A young relative, his cufflinks polished, shouted, "Go back to the farm, Clara. You're embarrassing the Wexley name." Their jeers were a performance, each taunt a calculated jab at her simplicity. The hall felt like a gauntlet, the air thick with their contempt. Yet Clara took her seat calmly, her hands folded, her silence, a stark contrast to their cruelty. The family's hostility was a rising tide pressing against her quiet resolve, but her focus remained on the attorney, her dignity unshaken by their scorn. No makeup touched her face, but her hazel eyes held a quiet dignity, her auburn hair tied back simply. She moved softly, her presence unnoticed by the crowd of relatives, board members, and attorneys, their voices buzzing with anticipation. For years, Clara had cared for Reginald, cooking his meals, giving his insulin shots, sitting by his bedside while the family threw galas and chased deals. The hall was a stage for the elite. Victoria Wexley, 28, sat at the center, her black designer dress hugging her frame, her blonde hair cascading in perfect waves, raised as Reginald's granddaughter. She was the family's darling, polished, gifted in school, and a master of manipulation. Her smile was a weapon, her tears a performance, and her charm a mask for venom. Beside her, Alex, her boyfriend and a rising star in the company, adjusted his cufflinks, his smirk sharp. Clara's parents, Margaret and Edward, sat nearby, their faces hard, their wealth evident in their tailored attire. Margaret's pearl necklace gleamed. Edward's watch flashed, but their eyes were cold as they glanced at Clara. She'd been switched at birth, raised on a farm until 12, and when returned to the Wexleys, she was awkward behind in school and deemed uncultured. They called her a duty, not a daughter, especially after Victoria framed her for stealing and spilling wine on a board member's report, a lie that cost the family a deal and branded Clara a disgrace. The board members whispered, their suits crisped, their glances dismissive. "She's here," one muttered. Thought she'd be in the kitchen. Clara took a seat at the hall's edge, her hands folded, her silence a shield. As Clara settled, Margaret leaned forward, her voice a hiss that carried across the hall. "Why are you here? This is family business." When Margaret hissed at Clara, the family's mockery grew sharper, fueled by a board member's booming voice from the center of the hall. "She's no heir, she's a servant in a dress," he declared, his tie pin glinting as he leaned toward a colleague. "Bet she's here to steal Victoria's spotlight." His associate, a woman in a velvet suit, grinned cruelly. "That linen rag. She's insulting the estate's legacy. A female cousin, her hair pinned with pearls. called out, "Why is she even breathing our air? This is for real." "Wexley's." The board member pointed at Clara's shoes, his voice dripping with disdain. "Those look like they've trudged through manure. She's a walking disgrace." The crowd's laughter was a chorus, drawing nods from Alex, his cufflinks sparkling as he jeered. "She's probably plotting to sell the estate for pigs." The hall's energy was venomous, each jab a strike at Clara's quiet presence. Her fingers tightened on her dress, her face betraying nothing. But the crowd's scorn was a relentless wave, pressing against her calm exterior. The family's cruelty was a public execution of her dignity. Yet she didn't flinch, her silence a shield against their hate. The words were a blade, sharp and public, drawing nods from the relatives. Edward's sneer was colder, his voice loud enough for the board to hear. "I've said it before. You were raised out of duty. Don't even dream." The crowd's murmurs grew, their eyes raking over Clara's linen dress, her scuffed shoes. Victoria clutched Alex's arm, her voice trembling with false sincerity. "Please, Clara, stop fighting over things. This isn't some barnyard auction." Alex scanned Clara from head to toe, his tone dripping with scorn. "There's no noble blood in someone who knows how to muck a stable." The hall's laughter was a chorus, cruel and unrelenting, each jab a strike at Clara's quiet presence. Then, Edward stood, his face red, and slapped Clara across the face, the sound echoing off the oak walls. As Edward slapped Clara, the crowd's disdain turned vicious, their taunts a feeding frenzy. A group of ants near the back, their fur stoles draped elegantly, joined the assault, one shouting, "She's got no shame showing up here." That slap was too kind. Her sister, her earrings dangling, laughed loudly. "Bet she's used to worse on the farm. She's not one of us." The ants' voices drew nods from the relatives, their approval fueling the hall's scorn. A young board member called out, "She's a fraud in a cheap dress. Victoria's the true heir." The crowd's jeers were a storm, crashing over Clara's quiet presence. Victoria's fake tears glistened, her voice soft but cutting. "Oh, Clara, why make this harder? You're breaking our hearts." The hall's hostility was a living thing, each lie a jab at Clara's simplicity. Clara's cheek burned, but she sat still, her hands folded, her hazel eyes steady, the barrage of insults suffocating. The family's cruelty reached a peak, their laughter a weapon aimed at her solitude. Yet she remained composed, her silence a quiet defiance against their orchestrated venom. Gasps followed, but no one intervened. Not the board, not the relatives, not Victoria, whose faint smirk betrayed her role in the setup. Clara's cheek burned, but she didn't flinch, her eyes steady, her silence a wall against their hate. The hall felt smaller, the air thick with their contempt. Yet she sat composed, her dignity a stark contrast to their cruelty. The humiliation grew vicious, the family feeding off Edward's aggression. A cousin, her silk scarf fluttering, leaned toward an aunt, her voice loud. "She's got no place here. That dress, did she sew it from a feed sack?" The aunt nodded, her earrings glinting. "Bet she's here to beg for scraps. Reginald must have pitied her." A board member, his tie monogrammed, muttered to his colleague, "She's the farm girl who ruined our deal. No wonder they keep her in the shadows." The relatives' laughter was sharp, their eyes glinting with amusement. Victoria's tears dried, her voice now edged with mockery. "Oh, Clara, always the martyr. Did you think you'd charm your way into the will?" Alex chuckled, his cufflinks flashing. "She probably thinks cleaning Reginald's bedpan makes her an heir." The crowd's scorn was a storm, each taunt a dagger aimed at Clara's simplicity. She adjusted her dress, her hands steady, but the barrage of insults was relentless, pressing against her calm exterior. The hall's hostility was a living thing, yet she didn't waver, her silence a quiet rebellion against their venom. As the attorney prepared to read, the family's disdain turned personal. their lies targeting Clara's very existence. Margaret stood, her pearls clinking, her voice shrill. She's no Wexley. She was raised with pigs, not principles. The crowd roared, their laughter a jagged edge. Edward pointed at Clara, his watch gleaming. You embarrassed us before shareholders. You're a stain on this family. A gossipy uncle, his suit rumpled, shouted, Bet she's been scheming since she got here. Thinks she's one of us. The board members joined in, one in a gray suit calling out, She's got no education, no class. Why's she even sitting here? Victoria's smirk widened, her dress pristine, her role as the victim cemented. The relatives tossed barbs, their voices a chorus of contempt. She's a servant, not an heir, one cried. Clara's hands rested in her lap, her breath even. But the crowd's cruelty was a net, wrapping around her quiet resolve. The hall's disdain was suffocating. Yet she sat still, her silence a defiance that went unnoticed. The attorney, Mr. Arthur Lynn, rose, his face solemn, his glasses glinting under the chandeliers. The hall quieted, the family's anticipation a tangible force. He unfolded the will, his voice steady. I, Reginald Wexley, in sound mind, of my own free will, and with full legal capacity, declare this my last will and testament, witnessed and verified at Wexley Estate by attorney Arthur Lynn. I hereby leave my entire estate, including Wexley Holdings, all domestic and international real estate, every trust and asset under my name, my art collections, and all intellectual property to the one person I recognize as family, Clara Wexley. The hall erupted, chairs scraping, voices rising. When the attorney announced Clara's inheritance, the family's fury grew personal, their accusations targeting her very identity. A senior board member, his glasses gleaming, stood, his voice shrill. This is an outrage. She's a country nobody, not a Wexley. The crowd roared, their laughter a jagged edge. A female relative, her silk gloves pristine, shouted, She's been scheming in the shadows. Bet she poisoned Reginald's mind. The relatives jeered, one tossing a crumpled napkin toward Clara's chair, its flutter a taunt. Alex smirked, his voice loud. She's a thief in a dress, stealing Victoria's birthright. The board member's colleague muttered, We should have locked her in the stables where she belongs. The hall's disdain was a net, wrapping around Clara's quiet resolve. Her hands rested in her lap, her breath even. But the crowd's cruelty was a storm, each word a strike at her dignity. The family's hostility was suffocating, pressing against her from all sides. Yet she sat resolute, her silence a rebellion against their hate. Margaret shot to her feet, her face pale. Impossible. She lived on a pig farm for 12 years. Edward gripped his chair, his knuckles white. I refuse to accept this. Victoria is the rightful heir. Victoria's tears returned, then flipped to a bitter laugh. My sweet sister, always the martyr. What's next? Did you forge the will with one hand while kneeling? Alex's voice was venomous, his eyes narrow. Someone should check Mr. Wexley's fingerprints. I doubt he knows what day it is, the aunt muttered, her voice carrying. She probably tricked him while he was half dead. Clara sat still, her eyes on the attorney, her silence a fortress against their outrage. The family's fury grew sharper, their accusations a feeding frenzy. A board member stood, his voice booming. This is a scandal. She's got no qualifications to run holdings. His colleague nodded, his tie tight. She's a liability, not an heir. Victoria's been groomed for this. The cousin in the silk scarf shouted. She's been playing the saint, manipulating Reginald in his sickbed. The uncle's face reddened, his voice shrill. We'll contest this. She's no Wexley. Margaret lunged forward, her hand raised for another slap, her pearls swinging. As Margaret raised her hand for another slap, the crowd's mockery grew bolder. Their lies a public execution of Clara's presence. A group of younger cousins. Their designer watches flashing. Join the assault. One shouting, "She's a fake. That dress proves she's no heir." His sister, her lipstick bright, laughed sharply. Bet she's been milking Reginald for years. Playing the saint. The cousins' laughter drew nods from the aunts. Their fur stole a symbol of their disdain. A board member called out, "She's a disgrace to Holdings. Victoria's the one we trust." The crowd's jeers echoed off the walls, their voices a chorus of contempt. Victoria's smirk was faint, her tears dry, her role as the victim fueling the family's scorn. The hall's energy was venomous, each taunt a dagger aimed at Clara's simplicity. Clara's cheek still stung, but she didn't move, her eyes on the attorney, her silence a fortress against their deceit. The family's cruelty was a living thing, wrapping around her quiet dignity. Yet she stood firm, her resolve a quiet rebellion against their hate. The crowd held its breath, their eyes glinting with anticipation, their loyalty to Victoria unwavering. Clara's cheek still stung, but she didn't move, her hands folded, her hazel eyes steady. The hall's chaos was a storm, each lie a strike at her quiet presence. Yet she remained composed, her dignity a rebuke to their deceit. The attorney raised a hand, his voice firm. The will is notarized, witnessed, and legally binding. But Margaret's hand was already descending, the crowd's murmurs egging her on. The side doors swung open, the sound a thunderclap that stilled the hall. Reginald Wexley stepped in, his silver hair gleaming, his cane tapping the marble floor, his eyes like frost. Each step was deliberate, his presence a force that silenced the crowd. He was thinner, his suit loose from illness, but his gaze was sharp, his recovery a secret kept by Clara's care. He stopped at the hall's center, his cane a verdict, and spoke, his voice calm but cutting. "You just assaulted my rightful heir," when Reginald declared Clara his heir. The hall's silence was a reckoning, the family's earlier accusations a bitter echo. The board members, once dismissive, sat frozen, their tailored suits creased, their objections mute. The cousin with the monogrammed handkerchief stood, his voice trembling, and whispered, We were wrong. She's the true Wexley." The aunts in fur stoles sank into their chairs, their laughter replaced by shame, their earrings dull. Reginald's voice was steel, his authority absolute. "Clara cared for me when you were chasing wealth. You dared to judge her by her shoes." The relatives' faces paled, their scorn turned to awe, their respect a reluctant gift. Victoria's tears were real now, her dress a reminder of her deceit. Clara stood calm, her linen dress catching the light, her inheritance a quiet force that dismantled their arrogance. The audience cheered her vindication, Reginald's defense a shield, her rise a rebuke to the lies that had tried to break her. The room froze, gasps echoing off the walls. Margaret's hand dropped, her face ashen. Edward sank into his chair, his watch dull. Victoria's tears vanished, her dress suddenly too tight. Reginald's eyes swept the crowd, his words a blade. To Margaret, "You let your own blood sleep in the horse stalls at 13. To Edward, you called your child a shame because she didn't know which fork was for salad. To Victoria, you spilled wine on a diplomatic report and blamed your sister. You cost me $1 billion Arab contract. And you think I didn't know as Reginald condemned Victoria." The family grappled with their shame, their faces pale under the chandeliers. The female cousin with pearls, who'd mocked Clara's dress, whispered to her sister, "We called her a servant, and she's the heir." Her voice trembled, her earlier taunt a stain. The young board member, who'd championed Victoria, stood, his tie loose, and muttered, "Hey, I backed the wrong side." The attorney approached Reginald, his glasses glinting, his voice low. "She's the soul of this estate. Sir, we failed her. Reginald's eyes were ice. His words a verdict. Clara's heart saved this family, mine included. You judged her by her dress, not her loyalty. The crowd's narrative shifted, their scorn replaced by reverence. Clara's inheritance, a beacon that exposed their deceit. Her scuffed shoes were steady, her white dress a testament to her strength, her silence a quiet command. The audience felt a surge of satisfaction. Reginald's authority a hammer, Clara's rise a slap to every doubter, her truth a victory over their cruelty. The crowd's silence was suffocating, their shame a weight they couldn't escape. Clara sat still, her linen dress catching the light, her silence a testament to her strength. Reginald's gaze softened as it landed on Clara, his voice gentle for the first time. You owe no apology for what they did to you. You are a Wexley not by blood, but by character. When Reginald softened toward Clara, the crowd's silence was a surrender. Their earlier mockery a bitter memory. The board member in the gray suit, who'd called Clara uneducated, stood, his face pale, and whispered, We celebrated Victoria. But Clara's the legacy. His colleague nodded, his objections forgotten, his earlier scorn a regret. The gossipy uncle, his suit rumpled, approached the attorney, his voice low. We were blind. She's the heart of holdings. The younger cousin's watches dulled, their jeers replaced by apologies, their confidence shattered. Reginald's voice cut through the quiet, his tone unyielding. Clara doesn't need your approval. She earned this estate with every meal, every night by my side. The relatives' power waned, their lies exposed. Clara's inheritance a symbol of her unbreakable will. Her hazel eyes were calm, her white dress a badge of her resilience, her seat a light that exposed the hall's darkness. The audience reveled in her triumph. Reginald's defense a foundation, her rise a final blow to the lies that had tried to erase her. He turned to the attorney, his tone final. Execute the will, and if any of them remain in this house 48 hours from now, call the police and charge them with unlawful occupation. As Reginald ordered the family's eviction, the hall's elite stood humbled, their arrogance a memory. The senior board member, who'd called Clara a nobody, gathered his papers, his face pale, and whispered, We betrayed the Wexley name. The female relative in silk gloves stood, her gloves slipping, her voice low. We need to honor Clara. She's the future. The younger cousins packed their things, their watches now a reminder of their shame, their earlier taunts a lesson. Victoria's ban was a death knell, her reputation erased, her deceit a stain that would follow her forever. The relatives' influence crumbled, their lies a footnote. Clara's inheritance a promise of a new legacy. Reginald's authority was absolute, his defense of Clara a beacon for the estate. Clara's scuffed shoes caught the light, her white dress a symbol of her endurance, her silence a verdict. The audience felt a rush of triumph. Reginald's power, a shield. Clara's seat, a legacy that would outlast the family's fallen lies. The hall was a graveyard. The family's power shattered. Margaret's pearls seemed to choke her. Her earlier slap a regret. Edward's face was gray, his authority gone. Victoria's hands trembled, her manipulation exposed, her future uncertain. Alex's cufflinks were forgotten, his ambition a footnote. The board members sat silent, their objections mute, their loyalty to Victoria a mistake. Clara rose, her steps soft on the marble, and walked to the central chair, the seat of Wexley Holdings. Now hers, she sat, her white dress a symbol of her grounded strength, her silence a verdict that spoke louder than their lies. The audience cheered her triumph, her dignity a slap to every doubter, her inheritance a victory over their cruelty. The family's shame was a living thing, their faces pale under the chandeliers. The cousin in the silk scarf gathered her things, her laughter a bitter memory. The uncle slipped out, his earlier barbs a lesson. The board members whispered, their power waning, their earlier scorn a cautionary tale. Reginald stood beside Clara, his cane steady, his presence a shield. You judged her by her dress, not her heart, he said, his voice low. She cared for me when you were chasing wealth. She's the soul of this family. The attorney nodded. The will's execution already in motion. The estate's keys now Clara's. Victoria's tears were real now. Her dress a costume that no longer fit. Margaret and Edward faced eviction. Their disdain a stain they'd carry forever. The hall emptied. The relatives dispersing. Their egos checked. Days later, the Wexley estate's halls whispered Clara's name in awe. The family's power diminished. Their legacy hers. The aunts avoided the mansion. Their gossip a cautionary tale. Their influence gone. The board members faced scrutiny. Their ties to Victoria a stain. Their careers uncertain. The uncle wrote a public apology, printed in the company's newsletter. His respect, a belated gift. Clara's seat had reshaped holdings. Her vision, a beacon for integrity, not greed. Reginald's new rules, enforced by the attorney, banned favoritism, ensuring the empire served its founders' values. The estate's staff, once silent, now spoke of Clara's care, their loyalty hers. Her white dress, once mocked, was displayed in the hall, a symbol of resilience. Reginald's letter to Clara was simple. You rebuilt my dream. It's yours now. The audience cheered her legacy. Her inheritance a triumph that would echo through the estate. A promise that character would always outshine deceit. Clara's hands rested on the chair's arms. Her hazel eyes calm. Her victory in the silence. In the seat. In the truth. The audience felt a surge of satisfaction. Reginald's defense, a hammer. Clara's rise, a rebuke to the lies that had tried to break her. Clara's past was a shadow that lingered, revealed in fragments through the years. At 12, she'd arrived at the estate, her farm boots muddy, her accent thick, her hands calloused from chores. The family mocked her, sent her to the stables to sleep, called her lessons a waste, but Reginald saw her heart, taught her quietly, shared stories of the empire he'd built. When Victoria framed her for the wine incident, Clara took the blame, her silence protecting the family's image. Even as they scorned her, she'd spent nights by Reginald's bedside, learning his values, his regrets. While Victoria danced at galas, her care meals, injections, whispered conversations had kept him alive. His recovery a secret she'd guarded. The estate was hers not because of blood, but because she'd earned it. Her character forged in the fields, her strength honed in the face of their hate. The audience reveled in her vindication, her quiet power a light that exposed the family's darkness. The Wexley estate stood quiet, its halls empty, its legacy now Clara's. Victoria and Alex were banned, their reputations ruined, their manipulation a footnote in the family's history. Margaret and Edward faced legal battles, their wealth tied to the estate they'd lost, their cruelty a lesson for the elite. The board reformed, its new leaders pledging loyalty to Clara, her vision for holdings already reshaping the empire. The relatives avoided the estate, their gossip a warning, their influence gone. Clara's chair became a symbol, her leadership a beacon for those who valued character over lineage. Reginald retired to a cottage on the grounds, his trust in Clara absolute, their bond unspoken but unbreakable. The wind carried the scent of autumn leaves, the estate a canvas for her triumph, and she sat steady, her victory in the silence, in the will, in the truth. She was the disgrace, until she sat on the throne. If this hit you right in the gut, like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more justice, more vengeance, more Clara Wexley.